A proposed Biden administration rule change would block schools from prohibiting transsexuals from participating in female sports. The proposed change comes after at least 16 states enacted laws banning biological male athletes from competing with females. The change would enshrine pro-trans sports participation into a U.S. Department of Education gender equity law known as Title IX. Well, here to set us straight on this is education strategist and commentator Angela Morabito. She's a former press secretary for the U.S. Department of Education and now serves at DFI. Well, Angela, it's good to see you again and talk with you. So tell us, can the President of the United States just nullify the will of the people in at least 16 states with a stroke of the pen? Your thoughts?
Well, Gary, it's great to be with you, but I wish I had better news to share. What the Biden administration is trying to do is unravel more than a half century of progress for women's rights and women's equality under Title IX. He knows that this is tremendously unpopular, that the American public believes women's sports are for women. It's right there in the name. But because he knows it's so unpopular, he's trying to use this federal rulemaking process to undo Title IX, which is federal law.
Well, trans rights seems to be a big issue for the political left in this country, Angela. So why is that when only about 1.7 million Americans over the age of 13 identify as transsexual? That's only about 0.5% of the entire population of the United States. So why does a very small group of people have so much influence over Biden and others?
This is all about politics. The Biden administration is willing to sacrifice the rights of women and opportunities for this next generation of girls to appease the far left progressive fringe. This isn't about doing what's best for students. It's about making a political statement, and that's what he's doing here. This doesn't put students first. It would actually do a lot of harm to the next generation if it's allowed to go forward.
Don't trans athletes have rights too?
Trans athletes do have rights. In fact, all students have equal rights under Title IX to access an education free from discrimination on the basis of sex. That has been true since Title IX was enacted, and nothing we're doing goes against that. In fact, we're the ones upholding it. It's the Biden administration that's trying to redefine sex in the law to include gender identity. They're playing this word game, trying to warp the meaning. And what it does is really weaponize Title IX so that it harms the very women it was created to protect.
Angela, you've been in Washington a long time, so what is going on? Why this sudden push for trans rights that we're seeing around the country?
It is all about politics, unfortunately, but if there's any silver lining here, Gary, it's that we have a chance to stand up against it. The Defense of Freedom Institute has just led a coalition letter to the Biden administration asking for the public to have more time to comment on this proposed rule. We also have a comment portal that helps people make their voice heard on this rule. And by law, the Department of Ed has to consider every single comment it receives. So if you go to dfipolicy.org, you can submit a public comment. We've made it super simple for you to do, and it allows you to have a say, which is your right as an American, on this proposed rule.
Okay, you mentioned a little bit about this. I know this rule change doesn't go into effect immediately. It'll take some time. So explain what the process is now with this. What happens next?
Sure. So we're in a period right now called the public comment period, where the American public has a chance to weigh in on the Biden administration's first Title IX rule that was really about redefining sex in the law. That shattered the record for the number of public comments received. And now, of course, some of them are supportive, but I believe a great majority of the American public knows that men are men and women are women, and they don't want to see these far-left progressive politics inflicted on children. So now we're in the public comment for this rule about women's athletics. So we have until early to mid-May to chime in on this rule and tell the Biden administration how the public feels about it.
Okay, mid-May, that's not far away. So I know that states that ban transsexuals from participating in female sports are likely to challenge this rule. So what can people do about it? Because it seems like the battle is now in the courts, not in the hands of the people.
Well, not yet. I believe this will end up in the hands of the courts, but right now is actually the perfect time for people to submit comments. This is our window right now to have a say on this rule. So I would encourage people to act fast. Go to dfipolicy.org and make your voice heard in protecting Title IX, because this window seems to be closing fairly soon, and we want to make sure that everyone has a chance to be heard.
Do you really think the president's going to hear the people on this? Because it seems like he just does what he wants to do.
That's a really good question. And, while the Biden administration does seem to just override what people want left and right, especially when it comes to parental rights and education and things like school choice, by law, the Department of Ed has to consider every single comment it receives. That doesn't mean it has to respond to every single individual comment, but it means in the preamble to their final rule, they have to explain why they did what they did. And we want to make sure that they can't get away with trampling on the rights of women or undoing what Title IX was created to protect. Okay,
education strategist Angela Morabito, thank you for setting us straight today. We appreciate it, Angela.
Thank you so much, Gary.